Today I'm going to talk about looping and loop pedals, what they do, how to use them in a most effective way possible. Now, we've got the Digitech Jamman stereo here, which you can see to my left, but it's not specific to this model. The manual for this is pages and pages and pages and pages of very advanced features, none of which are covered here. You can see those online if you just type Jamman stereo. I'm sure somebody has talked through the intricate features of this, but none of them really have any clout unless the person using them has got an artistic feel of how to really use one, because you could just record lots and lots of things together and it just ends up being a row at the end. Now I'm going to record a new loop. Now lots of people would trigger the loop to start on beat 1 of the bar. That's fine. However, beat 1 is quite important. You've got to make sure that if you're strumming a chord like this, that you're going to get the full attack of that chord. So perhaps it may be prudent, as I do with my one-man band setup. You can see a video on my channel about that about a week ago. I heard it through the grapevine on a one-man band setup using the loop pedal. I trigger on the final 8th note of the bar, depending on the rhythm. If it's a swing tune that I'm doing, I trigger it on the final swing 8th of the bar, so it's actually slightly later. The idea being that you get a nice clean chord. So if I do something like this, now I didn't trigger that on the final 8th note when I did the loop, so that would have sounded fairly dreadful. You can hear it rushes, so you've got to be very careful when you do something like this. You've got to internalize the beat so that you make sure that your rhythm is going to be absolutely spot on. So we could do something like this. That's better. Now, I've got here the Fender Strat, which has got 3 different pickups, which means I can get 3 very different sounds, or a combination of those things. Mixing as you're going along is going to be really, really important for you. Now I'm going to get rid of that loop. One of the reasons I bought this particular pedal is that it will forget the loop if you press one of these buttons, and that's kind of what I wanted. Lots of others said, oh yes, it stores the loop for later. And no, I don't want that. So this one forgets the loop, and it's exactly what I wanted it to do. So I'm going to record something. I'm going to record a 4-bar loop, and then I'm going to layer stuff over the top. And I've got to be very careful about the mixing as I go. I don't want these chords to be too loud, because I want to play a solo over it. And I know that pickup has got more clout to it, but the more stuff I add, the less that solo is going to come out. So I could use my fingers to play those chords. It doesn't matter if it's not trebly enough, because you could put some chords on, with a plectrum, but with just slightly less. You could. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. Is that going to be in time? I'm happy with that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to overdub a bass part on guitar. So what I've done is I'm going to roll the tone off the neck pickup, so I've got something that I can, it's just a bit more sort of deep and dark, so that it doesn't interfere with the treble response that I had on the loop there. So I'm going to press play on this again, but this time I'm going to press the overdub control and I'm going to come in halfway through the loop. The reason for that being that I can play a bass line that goes over the join. And now I briefly switch back to playback mode. On this pedal, and the vast majority of loop pedals, red means record, yellow is overdub, and green is playback, which means that it won't be recording anything anymore, and then you can play your solo over the top. Now, I'm going to record a little bit of very, very gentle sort of counter line on the guitar. I'm going to try and do a sort of this. Just in the background, just to give that in a sense that there's a sort of a drum kit there. So instead of doing ding 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 ding, there's going to be some 16th content there. You've got to be very careful that you get it right. But on most loop stations, if you press and hold that button, it'll take off the most recent recording. You can't strip back all the recordings on this. You can on, I think, the very latest loop stations, you can actually decide which loops. You can mix loops on the fly, but you end up with a pedal board that's this long. So I'm going to put some 16th note stuff down. What I've done is I've made it too complicated. So we've now then returned to the sound that I had before, which is just the bass line and the chords and nothing else. That 16th note has gone. So I've got to think very carefully whether, well, first of all, whether it's necessary to have that part, and B, I've got to make sure I play it in time if it's going to be, because it'll stick out like a sore thumb if it's not. Any loop that's got a mistake in it is going to keep playing and keep playing and keep playing and get more obvious and more obvious and more obvious. So I'm going to do that. I don't like it at all. It's not necessary, and actually it's not bringing anything. It's rhythmically not all that great. So it may be better if it's a slower tempo, but there's enough, it's a fast enough tempo here for me to play a solo over. So this is where I go to my bridge pickup, and this time when I play a solo, it will cut over that mix because I've been very careful to try and mix it well as I'm playing it. And there you go. So you can practice your soloing over the top of something where you have created on the fly. It's very important to do this because it internalizes your rhythm. What that means is that instead of just tapping a beat, you've got an idea of where all the sub beats are. So you've got the beats, and you can place any 16th note anywhere in the bar. So you could maybe, you know, clap on the 8th 16th note of this loop. Could even have a go at trigger it on the last 16th, but actually the point of this is just to give you some rhythmic practice and also to learn how to mix, and it means that you get an idea of of how to do things live. The worst thing to do is to record those with and then expect to try and play. You're just not going to hear your solo at all over the top of that. So, nice and gentle. I'm going to try and record a 16th thing again, or just a counter line that just says something. Now that's better because I mixed the sort of ding-a-ding-ding-ding, those 16th notes with some longer notes that went over those chords. So it was providing both a percussive role and a sustaining role in one single take. And there we go. Of course, when you've done this, you can just do that and it's forgotten everything I've told it to do. So it's quite a good thing to do this as well. So it means you can just throw away things and have another go, and that you're not just keeping stuff for the sake of it. So there we go. There it is. A bit of looping advice.